doing here?
Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell hanging out with my partner here, Mark Hunter. And you know what time it is. It is Saturday morning and time for Sales Logic, the show where we dive into those strategies, everything you need to know to sell more effectively. Mark, we got a powerful show this morning. What's on tap?
Well, we do. We're going to talk about the last 3 weeks of the year. Hey, we're coming right down to the final stretch, and there's still a lot of business to be had out there. We're going to talk about strategies you can do. We got a great question from a sales manager who's saying, hey, our team's shut down. Hey, got one of my fave books we're going to talk about. And of course, a lightning round on some top 10 strategies. So yeah, it's a good show. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Let's hit the video and let's dive in.
We prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
And with that, we say the power of scheduling automation has never been more important than it is today. Your sales team needs a solution to easily meet with prospects at the right time. Every time. With Calendly, you can turn more meetings into revenue, accelerate your sales cycle, and increase your win rate when you use Calendly to automate your scheduling. Finish the year strong and request a demo of Calendly today. Thank you, Calendly. It's what Mare and I both use. So, okay, tell the audience how the show works.
All right. So every week we come to you and talk about the topics that you want to discuss when it comes to sales. So if you have a question, just go to saleslogicpodcast.com. We always kick the session off with you, the audience, getting active, engaged, and involved. We discuss a hot topic. We discuss a book that we think you ought to be reading that would be of value to make you more effective in the sales arena. And last but not least, to make sure you get return on investment, we leave you with a lightning round, those things that you can activate immediately to close more deals.
Well, hey, with that, okay, the topic we're talking about is how to maximize the last 3 selling weeks of the year. The question comes from Meridith from Costa Rica. She says, I love your show. Listen every week. My sales team is starting to slow down. Holiday parties, vacations, family commitments. I want them to finish the year strong. What's your best advice? Fire them all. No, I'm sorry. I won't say that. That was me.
Well, it's pretty typical, right?
It is.
Yeah. Here we are. It's, good salespeople have hit their goals. You're coming into the time of year when there's so much time for parties. You feel like your customers are busy. You've got your own schedule. You've got to buy presents. You've got to celebrate with your family. It's very, very natural to slow down, but it is the last thing you want to do when it comes to sales. You truly want to maximize these last 3 weeks of the year. And I think the place that you need to start, Marina, is getting the sales team together and having a meeting and talking about what actions you are going to take. Discuss it and get everybody to commit to what they're going to do in the last 3 weeks of the year. Not from a results standpoint, because Mark, I don't know if you agree with this, but results can be up in the air. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes people have to get tax deductions and do things like that. Sometimes they are pushing those buying decisions until the first of the year. So focus more on the behaviors rather than the results.
It's interesting. I was going to echo the same thing, and it's the activity, because again, there are factors, and I never like to pass blame to other people or other things. But there are some times at the end of the year when things are really outside of your control, but you can still control your activity. And for Marina, I'm going to say, hey, it starts with you. Your people have to see you putting in the activity, putting in. So yes, you've got things on your calendar yourself, but they've got to see you making it happen too. And that's leadership always starts at the top. Culture starts at the top. And I agree, get your team together. And hey, let people take time off for various commitments. But there are also things that have to be done. And again, with proper planning, you can get those things done. It really is amazing. The last couple of weeks of the year can be very similar to, remember the old term before cell phones and computers and everything, when you say that the most productive day of the year was the day before vacation, because you got all that work done. Because right, remember that? Yeah. And that's really what you got to kind of make right now, because you may not have full days. You may not have, because you got to take a couple hours out for a kid's party at school or a program or something of that nature. But you've got to find a way to get it done. And you can if you schedule your time.
Absolutely. I think a really great thing to do is to get together. In fact, we all should be doing this. Write down the customers or clients that you did business with this year, and make sure that you're setting these last 3 weeks of the year just to touch base with them, and to tell them to have a wonderful holiday season and to thank them for the business. It's a great activity to do. Number one is because you're solidifying those relationships and making sure that they're going to stay with you. The other is, if there's anything that they need to buy or anything they need to do, you're going to uncover it at that point.
I tell you what, I always echo that. I've been making a number of those thank you calls already. And I'll tell you what, it's great because you're really deepening existing relationships. And I'm uncovering new opportunities for next year with these clients. Several of them have mentioned things, and I've been able to connect them with other people and so forth. There is so much business to be had by making those types of phone calls. And you know what? They're actually fun to make.
Yes,
Some
absolutely.
great conversations. And of course, if you can do it face to face, that's even better. But wow, have those conversations.
You know, Mark, I also think that it's a great time to touch base with those clients that you didn't close the deal. You didn't get the business, and just say that, you enjoyed calling on them. Maybe they went with somebody else. Maybe they just never made a decision. But to go ahead and reach out and to touch and to say the same thing to them. It was great talking with you, learning about your business this year, and then plant the seed. This is the most important thing that you can do in the last 3 weeks of the year. Plant the seed that you will be in touch right after the new year to talk about their goals, their plans for 2023.
There's so much to be said there, because you've already taken the time to develop the relationship. Okay, it didn't materialize into a transaction. That's okay. The relationship is still there. They're going to be shocked. They're going to be amazed that you reach out to them. I mean, that's one of the most powerful things you can do. This is why your CRM system, your CRM right now, becomes your friend, because you can dig back and this is also that pass that you get to really call anybody you want.
Yes.
Because I've also found that I can be reaching out. And I did this week. There was a CEO of a company here in Dallas that I want to get to know. And I was given his name, and I just reached out. Now, didn't get a connection yet, but then I connected with somebody else and you know what? I'm going to keep playing this over the next several weeks, because I know there's a window of time when I can probably have a conversation with this CEO.
Yeah. So I think it's a great time to be doing that. The other thing I think, Mark, is it's a good time to get gut-wrenchingly honest with yourself and to clean your pipeline. Really look back, what's in your pipeline. I was doing this this week. What has the probability? I don't know if you do this, Mark, and I'm wondering if people do, but I think it's a great way to use these last few weeks of the year. I need to be a third of the way through my 2023 goal by the time I close out 2022. Meaning that I have X amount of speaking engagements I want to do in 2023, and I need to be a third of the way there by the time December closes. Have those commitments on my my calendar. And I was going back through the pipeline. I had more than made my my goal, but I was going through my pipeline, and I had to kick out some stuff that honestly I had on there that wasn't. It's never going to close. That's a waste of my time and energy to continue to call there.
Now, I'm going to push back a little bit. Is it a waste of time and energy, but could it still be a relationship that could develop into something else?
Let me tell you what I do with it is that I'm a firm believer that the moment you make a decision to call on one prospect, you have made the decision not to call on two others. There's
I agree.
only so much time. So when I look back at my ideal client, my highest probability of closing, these prospects do not fit that ideal. So they go into a twice a year follow-up, something that does not involve my time, does not involve my energy. And, so if they ever move from a C to a B, great. But I needed to take them off the active pursuit of pipeline.
Okay, good. I like that, because what you're saying is your most valuable resource is your time. Dave
Yes.
Sanderson jumps in with a great one. Many of the C levels are working the last week of the month, and you can get, yes, this is that's my strategy right now, because I want to have coffees, breakfast, lunches, whatever conversations set up for that last couple weeks of the year, because they are working. And that's why I extend this last couple weeks of the year. I kind of extend my list, that if you've got the kind of that C, you may not be ICP, ideal customer profile, to me, but I'll kind of extend that list, like the CEO I'm trying to reach right now, a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but there could easily be a connection and a relationship that could open the door up for something else. So I kind of expand it just a little bit during this time, but I love your strategy of setting your goal of having 1/3 of your 2023. Okay, we just dated the podcast for 2022.
That's all right.
It's okay, that's fine. And saying you're going to have it 1/3 completed. See, because you're already looking at next year, and that's what too many salespeople don't do. They don't even think about the next year until the current year is shut down. Whoa!
Well,
big mistake.
you know what I love about it is that at Thanksgiving, I looked down and I was about 5 gigs shy of my goal. And what it did was it made me put my foot down harder on the gas to get closed what I needed to get closed. And a lot of times it's hard to get motivation this time of year. And you need to stay motivated. Mark, here's the other thing, is that if you slow down too much in December, it's going to take too much effort to get going in January, because the moment that you slow down, if we all take a week off of working out, it's so much harder to start back the next week because you stopped. So the last thing you want to do is just completely stop making calls, because it's so much harder to get started.
You are singing a song I love to hear, because again, the best way to get into the next year is by finishing this year strong. It's the activity. That's why I totally agree. And one of the things that drives me crazy, in fact, I had this in a conversation yesterday, and I was coaching an individual, and they were saying, well, and they say, check back with me after the first year. That's the conversation they're hearing. And that happens a lot, right? No, touch base with me. And I said, you got to schedule the time for the call. And if you look at the new year, the way New Year's falls and the way the week, this is going to be kind of weird, because Monday is a holiday. So you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And you know what's interesting? I want to fill those 4 days with appointments. I want to fill those 4 days with meetings. And I told him, I said, fine. Let me say touch base. Let's schedule a time to touch base. Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, January 3rd. Get those appointments on the calendar now, because otherwise you're going to be sitting there in January with an empty calendar, just starting to make phone calls. And you know what? Before you know it, January's gone. And that's 8.5% of the year.
Yeah.
Gone. Boom.
Yeah. And, the slower you start into January, the slower February is going to be. Again, it's back to that piece. Now, December can be tricky. People have such different philosophies around the holiday season. Dave Sanderson said a lot of C-suite executives work. Some don't. Some people really feel like it's a time to shut the office down. I have a lot of clients that are closing the entire office through the Christmas holiday to the New Year holiday. They're literally taking an entire week off. So I feel like December is more of the time to really plant the seed for that first week of January. My favorite calling week of the year, Mark, I don't know about you, but the one that I want to have slammed with appointments is that week of January 2nd through the end of the week, because everybody's in the office, everybody's back, everybody works that week pretty much, but it is not full with appointments because people are trying to catch up from the holiday, or they figure everybody else is busy too.
That's why it's so critical that first week of the year. Marina, this is something I'm going to challenge you to challenge yourself on and your sales team. What are the number of appointments? And set an objective, set a goal. What are the number of appointments we're going to have set for that first week of January before we shut down in the end of this year? You again, because otherwise you sit there and wait. And what I find so interesting is if you waste January, which is so easy to waste,
Yes.
you've now wasted 1/3 of the first quarter. And guess what? Now you run the risk of ending the first quarter behind plan. And now you're forever chasing, forever catching up. Because you got to remember, the fourth quarter, hey, what we're in right now, is always a wacky quarter because you never know how it responds. So guess what? You are really behind the 8 ball if you don't come into January loaded with appointments, loaded to get things going.
Well, the other thing is that you've just opened the door for your competition. I mean, right now, if I call Mark and I say, Mark, I hope, thank you so much for doing business with me this year. I hope you and your family have an unbelievably wonderful holiday season. I wanted to go get ahead and get on your calendar for January 4th. We have so many new things happening in our company. I want to understand where you're going, where you're headed, so we can maximize and help you achieve your goals. Now I'm probably the first person Mark is going to meet with when we come into January. And I've gotten a leg up on the competition. If I wait to plant that meeting, the chances that 3 of my competitors called Mark on the same day or within the same week have just skyrocketed. And now all of a sudden I'm lost in a sea of everybody who's selling Mark the same thing. But by getting ahead on the jump, see, I protected December. I'm not trying to make Mark do anything, but it's also opened the door because maybe Mark is going to say, hey, Meridith, you know what? Let's not wait till January. If I could get this off my to-do list, it would be so much better. I mean, you're there either way, but the last thing I want to be doing is calling Mark when everybody else is calling Mark.
That is so spot on. That's why making those calls Meridith, you and I were talking about that earlier in the show. Making those thank you calls, making those calls right now is so important because that's how you get your calendar filled. And I love calling existing clients.
Yes.
Right now. And Marina, I'm going to tell you, get your sales team focusing on this because again, you've got work that you're doing things with them, and it allows you to kind of have that business review, so to speak, that end of the year, start of the year business review. And it's going to get you off running fast. I'm going to jump back to a situation that I had a number of years ago. I was running a distribution facility for pumps and pipes and valves and all kinds of things. And it was a business I had taken over late or midway through the fourth quarter, and we were kind of struggling. And I made the decision we're going to remain open through the holidays. And what I found is all of the other competitors shut down. And we picked up a tremendous amount of business, emergency business, late in the year, those last couple of weeks of the year, because everyone else was closed, but we were open. Now I was worked around people's, holiday schedules and parties and so forth, but we kept it open. And the amount of new customers that we had going into the new year was absolutely unbelievable, all because we chose to not do what everyone else is doing, shut down. We remained open.
Yeah, Rob used to do that with his dental practice, and you cannot believe everybody shuts down over the holiday, but you can't believe the number of people who break a tooth or a kid's home from college and hasn't had a checkup. And we used to do over the week of the holidays, we used to do in revenue about half what we would do in the whole quarter. I mean, it was just an unbelievable push. So yeah, definitely. This is the time. You know what I love though, Mark, that we're talking about that I think is so important, that just made me realize with trying to get through my third of my 2023 is, Marina, you need to set a goal. Whatever it is that the people need something to shoot for, because the closer you get to a goal, it gives you that extra oomph to push, to do a couple of, to just do a couple of more things.
Well, it is because momentum creates momentum.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. You got to finish December strong in terms of activities. You may not be having the results because of the industry that you're in, but finish strong from the activities because it's going to give you the momentum going into the new year. This is so key. Once you shut down, I mean, we've talked about this. Sales is a muscle. It's like going to the
Yes.
gym. Like you mentioned earlier, if you don't go to the gym for a couple of weeks, it's like
Hard to go back.
it's hard to go back. And suddenly those bad habits begin to set in. And I'm always amazed at the end of the year how we do develop. Suddenly we just lose that edge of being on the phone. We lose that edge of making those really good proposals. We just lose that edge of understanding who our best customers. There's so many things that we can be zeroed in on and yet still enjoy the holidays.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, talking about enjoying the holidays, when I have appointments scheduled the first week of January, I'm so much more able to relax over the holidays and just enjoy my family because I'm not worried about next year's goal. I'm not worried about those types of things. And I truly can be present. The other is the first week of January, I can be lazy. I've just had a whole week off basically, and I'm tired. At the end of the year, it is natural to be tired right now. I was thinking, my gosh, from the number of parties that you go to, and then you're still working all day. And then you've got to have your family, over to the house or go to where the family is. I mean, there's so much activity that it's natural to say in this first week of January, time out. I just need to relax. But when I have those appointments, I start out of the gate, but it also gives me that going into 2023 with a third of my goal on the books, I'm going to be far more present, relaxing, enjoying the holiday.
Okay, now you want to go back and listen to the last 30 seconds because Meridith said the word tired 3 times. I don't think I've ever heard you say that word.
It happens.
Anyway. So, hey, we need to be moving along before we tell you about the book we think you should read. Let me remind you about Calendly. Accelerate your sales cycle and increase your win rate when you use Calendly to automate your scheduling. It's the tool we use to manage our work days and achieve our sales goals. Okay, the book. You even put in the notes. It's your fave book, Mark. You're right. I am. I talk about this a lot. Atomic Habits by James Clear. I was looking on my bookcase, looking on my other bookcase here, and I can't find. I must have loaned it. I tell you what, if you have not read Atomic Habits, you need to read it. Well, I don't need to say that to you. I know you've read it. What's your big takeaway?
My big takeaway, I actually listened to the book and I keep it on my Audible because I go back to it now and then. My really big takeaway is that the power of establishing the behavior, we get so hung up on results, so hung up on getting to the end zone. But if you can focus on the present moment and establish those behaviors and the consistent of those habits, it's going to take you much further than any goal you could ever set.
Yeah, it really is. And Atomic Habits is just about doing those little things consistently well. And, now, okay, this morning I didn't get up till 5:30. I didn't get, I normally get up at 4:30, but those first night I have a very set disciplined routine. And I'll tell you what, it sets my day in motion. And it absolutely is key. This is one, I firmly believe, what are the keys to success in sales? It's just being disciplined and having the right habits, right? And Atomic Habits, I mean, it's not just a book. It wasn't written for salespeople, but I'll tell you what, every salesperson I know, because I give them copies of the book. But James Clear, get the book. I think it's got like 10,000 Amazon reviews.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I know for both, I said it definitely is Mark's fave because I hear him talk about it all the time. But it's a great book to revisit. I'll just go back into pieces, go back and listen to pieces of it. But the power to me of truly the book is that it's just breaking things down into little small pieces and focusing on those pieces. You are going to go further than right now your mind has the ability to believe you can go.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, we got to jump into the lightning round. You got your hand on the button? Got your hand on the buzzer? Okay. Top 10 sales strategies you need to execute in December. Go. You're on the clock.
Number one, call your existing customers and say thank you.
You just took the number one thing from me. Call your customers you didn't get. Call them and thank them for their business.
Yeah, plant the seed. Everybody you talk to, plant the seed and have your first week of January scheduled.
Don't fall off your routine as to how you start the day. Stay focused, stay disciplined in how you start the day.
Yeah, clean your prospect list. Go back and really ask yourself who needs to be on it and maybe who needs to fall into a different category or maybe 100% be removed.
Set a goal and a plan as to how you're going to fill your calendar for that first week of January with appointments.
Yeah, I would say that you need to relook at your sales process. Really go back and think about what happened in this year, what worked and what didn't work, and maybe what you need to change or do differently as you move into the following year.
Review your schedule right now and keep it updated in terms of what times do I need to set aside for various parties, various functions, other activities. So you make sure you don't get caught blindsided by something.
Yeah, relook at your circles of influence, the people that you're networking and building relationships with. Are they the right people in your circle of influence, or do you need to make some changes there?
If you sell to existing customers, make sure you talk with them right now. Hey, when are you going to be closed? What hours are you going to be open? So that you can make sure that you can serve them as well as possible.
Clean your CRM. Go in and take a little bit of time and make sure that it's completely updated and it's ready to go for January of 2023.
Hey, you share one more, I'll share one more, and we'll close it down.
All right, you're up. I just shared mine.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. I just did that.
I'm on a sequence. Hey, make sure your customers know what your hours are and you know your terms of when does the last order come in? When can the last shipment be made? When for credit, whatever it might be. Get all of those. Make sure you know that right now. Don't get caught by it the last week of the year.
Mark, can I add? I am going to add one more, and that is make sure you're celebrating the right holiday with your customers and prospects. People celebrate very different things this time of year. Be tapped into that. Be respectful, and make sure that you're helping them celebrate what is important to them.
Hey, that is excellent. Hey, with that, we want to say a huge thank you to Calendly for helping us manage our scheduling needs through automation and for their sponsorship of Sales Logic Podcast. Be sure to visit the link in our show notes and request a demo of Calendly today. With that, we want to say thank you for listening. Yeah, hey, because, if you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, hey, consider telling a friend, would you please? Hey, it's how we grow to help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
And remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. Join us right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic, because Mark and I will have our foot on the gas working straight through the holiday season to help you be more effective at sales.
And we're actually going to be doing it in person because
that's right.
We'll be together at a meeting.
Yeah, we'll be doing it live and in person, coming to you from Dallas.
You got it.
All right. See you next week.